The last time I asked the old gardener about his lawn, he didn't mention the word grass once. He talked about what was underneath it, about the dark, crumbly soil that smells like wet earth after a storm, and about the coffee grounds he saves every single morning. He's 70 years old, and he doesn't own a lawnmower, a trimmer, or any of the blinking sensor-packed machines that have taken over every other yard on the block. In the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how he outproduces a $2,000 robot mower using nothing but his feet, a bucket of kitchen scraps, and a habit he's kept for decades. His name is Thomas, and his lawn doesn't just look different. It feels different when you walk across it. Springy underfoot, cool even in the afternoon heat, alive in a way that makes you stop and look down. The neighbors pay thousands for robotic mowers that hum across their yards on schedule, cutting the same blades to the same height, day after day after day. Thomas walks his lawn in a grid pattern every few days, scattering dried coffee grounds and crushed eggshells as he goes, and his grass gets greener every single year. That's not a coincidence. That's evidence of something the machine owners can't see. You've probably been told that a robotic mower is precision engineering, that its sensors, its charging station, its quiet electric motor are the peak of modern lawn care. The marketing says it saves you time, spares your back, and keeps your grass at the perfect length automatically. And honestly, for the first season, it looks flawless. The stripes are even, the edges are clean, and you feel like you finally won at this whole suburban game. But here's the trap. That machine is cutting your lawn on a schedule that has nothing to do with what your soil actually needs. It's shearing the top off the plant day after day and never putting anything back. Thomas doesn't fight against that system with a bigger machine. He beats it by doing the one thing the robot can't do, feeding the soil while he walks. Every dried coffee ground he scatters is slow-release nitrogen, the kind that breaks down gently over months. Instead of dumping a chemical spike all at once, every crushed eggshell adds calcium that the grass roots pull up through the season. The machine takes, and Thomas gives. That's the whole secret. And it's so simple that the people who spent thousands on robotic mowers refuse to believe it. They look at his lawn with its deep green color and think it must be something else, some expensive product, some hidden trick. But there's a wrong way to do it, and Thomas learned that the hard way. Before I get to that, if you're ready to put the old gardener's methods to work, subscribe right now and drop the word coffee in the comments. I want to see how many of you are ready to feed your soil instead of just cutting it. But if you bury the grounds wrong, if you dump them wet and heavy in one clump, you'll attract every ant within 50 meters, and the smell of sour fermenting coffee will hang over that corner of your yard for weeks. That's the failure case, and it's exactly the mistake most people make when they first try to copy what he does. Thomas knew this because he made that mistake himself back when he first started. He lost a whole section of his lawn to mold and pests, and he had to dig it out by hand. He learned the hard way that the method has rules, and the rules are not optional. Thomas doesn't call what he does gardening wisdom. He calls it stubborn trial and error, repeated until it worked. He's been walking that same grid pattern for decades, adjusting how much he scatters, how dry the grounds need to be, how long he waits between passes. When I asked him why the experts don't teach his method, he just laughed and said that nobody makes money telling you to use what you already throw away. The fertilizer companies want you to buy their bags. The robot mower companies want you to buy their machines. Nobody profits from you walking your yard with a bucket from your kitchen. The first step is all about preparation, and this is where most people quit. You can't just scrape the wet grounds out of the filter and toss them onto the grass. They need to dry first. Spread them thin on a baking sheet or an old newspaper left in the sun or a warm windowsill until they crumble between your fingers like dark, gritty sand. The texture matters. When they're properly dried, they don't clump, they don't mold, and they release their nitrogen slowly into the soil instead of rotting on the surface. You'll know they're ready when they feel dry and light, when the smell is more like toasted earth than stale coffee. Eggshells need the same treatment. Rinse them, let them dry, then crush them with your hands or a rolling pin into small, sharp pieces. Not powder, but little flakes that will break down over the season. As you crush them, you hear that satisfying crackle, and you feel the brittle edges against your palm. That's the calcium that your grass roots will pull up for months, strengthening every blade from the inside. This is where the process starts to feel less like gardening and more like evidence gathering. You're not buying anything. You're just saving what you already have and preparing it the right way. The feel of those properly dried grounds, dark, gritty sand, and the crackle of crushed eggshells are more than just preparation. They're the start of a case built against store-bought quick fixes. Subscribe now to keep uncovering the old gardener's methods that no one's talking about, so you're in position for the next piece of evidence. Tell me in the comments. When you crushed those shells, did you feel that break? Type crackle if you know your lawn is about to get stronger from the inside out.
I found it.
You still with me? Good, because
After
this
all
next
this time
part is the real secret. The application is just as important as the preparation, and it's where Thomas's method differs from every machine on the market. On the days he walks his lawn, he fills a small bucket with his dried grounds and crushed shells, then scatters them in a thin, even layer as he moves in that grid pattern, back and forth, overlapping his steps the way you'd mow, but slower. The grounds settle into the grass and work their way down to the soil with the next watering or rainfall. His footsteps press them into contact with the earth, starting the breakdown process immediately. The weight of a person walking matters more than you'd think. Each step gently presses the organic matter into the soil surface, where the microbes can reach it, while also aerating the turf just slightly. The same effect that expensive core aeration services promise, but delivered over weeks instead of one dramatic afternoon. Thomas isn't just feeding his lawn, he's working it the way any gardener works the earth, with pressure and patience instead of machinery. The robot mower glides over the surface and leaves nothing behind. Thomas walks and leaves a deposit of slow-release nutrition in every footprint. Here's where the stakes rise, because this is the moment most people doubt the method. It takes time. You won't see a dramatic change in the first week. The coffee grounds need to break down, the microbes need to do their work, and the grass needs to pull those nutrients up through its roots. But around the 4-week mark, something shifts. The green deepens. Not a chemical green, but a rich, dark color that seems to come from inside the blade. The grass stands taller, feels thicker underfoot, and when you walk across it, there's a bounce that wasn't there before. That's the nitrogen and calcium doing their job. The thing the robot mower owners never understand is that their machine is keeping their lawn alive, but not feeding it. It's like having someone cut your hair every week, but never giving you food. You'd survive, but you'd never thrive. Thomas's lawn thrives because every walk, every scattering of grounds and shells is a meal delivered exactly where the roots can reach it. The machines remove, Thomas returns, and that difference compounds season after season, until his lawn has a density and color that makes the neighboring robotic mowed stripes look pale and thin by comparison. You've seen it yourself, haven't you? The neighbor's lawn that gets greener every year while yours stays the same, or even fades a little, no matter how much you spend on fertilizers and services. You've probably chalked it up to luck, or better soil, or some expensive secret. But the answer was sitting in your kitchen the whole time, in the filter of your morning coffee and the shells of your breakfast eggs. Thomas figured this out through decades of paying attention, and he's been outperforming the machines for years without owning a single piece of mowing equipment. The comparison isn't even close when you look at the numbers. A robotic mower system with all its accessories runs into the thousands of dollars, and it still only cuts the grass. It doesn't feed it. Thomas's method costs nothing beyond what he already tosses in the trash, and it feeds the soil every single time he walks. The machine depreciates, needs maintenance, eventually breaks. The coffee grounds and eggshells keep working long after the bag is empty. Months and months of slow-release nutrition delivered on his schedule, at his pace, with his own 2 feet pressing it into the earth. Now, imagine your lawn in a few weeks. The color deepens first, a slow, steady shift that you notice when you look at it in the morning light. Then the thickness comes, blades filling in so densely that the soil stays cool and moist underneath, protected from the hot afternoon sun. Earthworms start surfacing after rain, dragging the organic matter deeper into the soil, building the structure that makes grass resist drought and disease. The sound of your footsteps changes too. A soft, solid crunch instead of that brittle, dry crackle that comes from underfed turf. That's not magic. That's the method working exactly as it should. That transformation you just imagined, the deep color, the thickness, the solid crunch underfoot, that's not luck. That's what happens when you treat kitchen scraps like investigative evidence instead of trash. Subscribe now because we've got a whole lineup of other everyday scraps the experts ignore. And each one carries its own case file of hidden soil power you can put to work without spending a dime. In the comments, drop the word crunch if you're ready to walk on a lawn that feeds itself, or tell me which scrap you're going to test next. We're building a community of gardeners who outsmart the machines, one step at a time. But here's the catch, and I can't say it enough. This only works if you prepare the scraps properly. Dump wet ground straight from the filter onto your lawn, and you'll get a matted, moldy mess that kills the grass underneath it. Crush the eggshells too fine, and they'll blow away in the next breeze, doing nothing at all. The drying step isn't optional. The crushing step isn't optional. It's the difference between feeding your lawn and creating a breeding ground for pests. The exact failure that makes people give up on kitchen scrap gardening and go back to buying bags of chemical fertilizer. Thomas told me he watches the neighbors with their robot mowers and feels a little sorry for them. Not because their lawns look bad, they don't prefer it, but because they're spending so much money to do half the job. The machine handles the cutting, but nobody's feeding the soil. Nobody's walking the grid with a bucket of dried grounds. The grass survives year after year, but it never reaches what it could be, and the owners never understand why their yard looks fine while Thomas's yard looks alive. Because the difference happened below the surface, where machines can't go. So the next time you pour your morning coffee, don't rinse the grounds down the drain. Spread them on a tray and let them dry. The next time you crack eggs for breakfast, rinse the shells and set them aside. In a few days, you'll have a bucket of the most underrated lawn food on the planet, and all it costs you is a few minutes of preparation and a daily walk in your own yard. The machine on the neighbor's lawn costs thousands and only takes. Your method costs nothing, and it gives every single time you walk it. That's the difference that shows up in the color, the thickness, and the life of your grass. And Thomas isn't done. He has another scrap he buried, something he saved from his kitchen that does something entirely different to the soil, something that doubles root depth over a season. That case opens next time, and it's going to change the way you look at waste forever. But for now, the evidence is out there right in front of you, greener every year, walked into the earth one step at a time by a 70-year-old man who never needed a machine to understand what his lawn was telling him. He just listened.